card number 22 from the 1953 Bowman Color set. It's Bob Porterfield from the Washington Senators. Not the Nationals, the Washington Senators. A little bit from the back of the card. Here it is. Bob, who was traded from the Yankees to Washington in June of 51, had a good season in 52. And you can look at those stats on the back of this card. He's been a hard luck pitcher with injuries hitting him just as he appeared about to hit his stride. However, his earned run rating in 1952 shows what he can do. And let's see what his ERA was. 2.73, not bad. This particular card has some personal significance to me. Is it because I'm related to Bob Porterfield? No. Is it because Bob Porterfield was shot by a crazed fan? No. It's because this card is among the very first vintage cards, I should mention, that I ever got. And here's the actual card that I got as a teenager, which my father picked up at a flea market among 6 or 7 other Bowman cards from 1953 and 54. There were also some 53 tops in there. And I've told this story many times before, so I'll spare you guys. But way back as a teenager, I got some of these cards, and flash forward, I guess, about 20 years or so. They really are kind of responsible for getting me on my vintage journey. So, Bob Porterfield. For anybody else, he might just be a common card, but for me, a card that stands out. And also, since he's sitting here, Bubba Church says hello. If you haven't noticed already, this is not a show. Cardroom Live is a hangout for fellow vintage collectors, whether we have guests or not, and tonight we do have a guest. Most of the time we are wasting time looking at and talking about old cardboard, and through it all, we do attempt to make it time well wasted. That's what we've been up to now for 5 years on Cardroom Live. So if you're here with us live, welcome to you. Welcome to my fellow YouTubers and Instagrammers. Welcome to the commenters, to the folks from all over social media land. If you're new to Cardroom Live and you're in the chat, don't be afraid to say hello. You are among cardboard friends. This is the live stream, after all, where everybody knows your name. And we don't know yours yet because you haven't said hello. But if you stick around a few Sundays in a row, we will learn your name soon enough. If you're listening to this later, you may be doing one or more of the following. Perhaps you're going to work or coming home from work. Perhaps you're sorting cards. Perhaps you're looking at eBay or auction sites. Maybe you're at a rock concert. Our buddy Ranger Studios is at a rock concert and actually said he might try to log in and get on Cardroom Live. I highly doubt that. I think he's only going to do that if the concert doesn't go well. Maybe you're rolling out those meatballs, walking the dog, sitting on the john, putting the kids to bed, battling raccoons in the backyard, wondering if our good friend Eddie Wakus will come up in conversation. It's always possible. Wondering what other kind of Mike foolery we're going to get into tonight. Whatever you might be doing, I do hope you get something out of the next hour. If you want to get in touch or have ideas for future sessions, you can always email me at bowman53channel@gmail.com. And of course, all the rest of that information can be found in the description below my mug. This session of Cardroom Live, speaking of Ranger Studios, is brought to you by none other than Ranger Studios. You should head over to rangerstudios.com for all kinds of incredible artwork and hobby-related gear that you're not going to find anywhere else, including this spiffy, fantastic Cardroom Live t-shirt to show your friends just how much you enjoy wasting time on Sunday nights. And of course, this is what it looks like. And it's a fun shirt. So I hope you'll consider supporting our buddy Scott at Ranger Studios. So good evening to everybody. Let's see who's at the bar. Hobby Brigade, welcome to you. First like in the books. I appreciate it. Welcome to you. Glad to see a new face. Andy, the dog ate my heart card, is here. Mr. Confluence Sports Cards is ordering a Scott Sarsaparilla. I'm very curious. Maybe I don't want to know what's in a Scott Sarsaparilla. Spartan Card Collector is in LA for business, but still taking in CRL on a Sunday night. That's dedication right there. Howdy from Casa del Pueblo, from Yank Me Cards. Steve, thank goodness we have a wrench holder here. What's up, Stuke? Hall of Famer. Jay Hawker Vintage Cards is here. Sven Patrick is here. Good evening to you. Another Hall of Famer, Tony from Psyched on Baseball Cards, is here. Another wrench holder, Mike, the sports history collector. Chris from Missouri. Mr. Wilhelm is here. And he's actually sorting cards. It's actually something that people do when they're listening or watching Cardroom Live. Mike Good is here, hoping everybody has a beautiful weekend. Mr. Reese, ND Card Ranger, the Savoy Special, Clean Sheep Shots. Drew is here. Orlando, a collector's dream, is here. Good to see you, Orlando. Allen's Cards making a special appearance. The Battery, Carlisle Rude, is here. Let's see who else. Mr. Killaboo 3, Kurt, is here. Mr. Mookie Chilson with a bit of Cardroom Live trivia. Bob Porfield handled Eddie Wakus, of course, without a problem. Eddie Wakus managed just 2 hits and 15 at-bats, only a 133 average. Thank you, Mook, and good to see you. And in 1966, apparently, he received exactly one vote for induction into Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm curious who that was. Peacemaker Cards is here. And the commenting collector is here. Good to see you. I like this. This is a great endorsement of Reindeer Studios. Orlando, a collector's dream, says that his wardrobe is essentially Reindeer Studios. Wonderful. Jacob Dahl is here as well. All right. Great. We've got a great group of folks in the chat at the bar. We're about to get started. We have a guest that's waiting. We're going to bring him in. And this is going to be a fun night of talking about collecting, talking about sharing our hobby through social media. But first, let's get our guest in here. No stranger to Cardroom Live, a veteran of Cardroom Live at this point. It's Mr. Hugo from Signs of a Past Time. Hugo, how are you tonight?
Hey, Alex, I'm doing great. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. So for anybody that doesn't know Hugo, you're going to get to know him a little bit tonight. I think a lot of the folks in the chat are familiar with your channel and with your Instagram page. But one of the things that I like about our community of collectors, and I want to keep it broad because not everybody necessarily has a social media account or a channel, but we're connecting with each other. And some of us are actually making content and sharing content. One of the things I like about it is you can get a different sense of the person's personality and style, in addition to like getting a sense of what they like to collect. So before we sort of take a look at your YouTube channel and your Instagram page, Hugo, can you take us back to maybe your earliest memories of baseball and collecting, and like what kind of sparked those initial interests?
Yeah, well, I've said in my channel before that I moved to the U.S. in '86, and I lived in Rhode Island. So that was Sox fever was like at an all-time high. You know, they were making their push for the playoffs, and they appeared in the World Series that year. And you know, I know Mookie Chilson's probably there's Mookie. The Mets beat the Red Sox, but that's what sparked my love for baseball. I mean, that's all people talked about back then. And then I didn't get into collecting baseball cards until '88. You know, it took me a little while to start collecting. I kind of like just fell in love with the game first, and then you know, when everyone was collecting around me, I figured, well, you know what, let's try it. I had a paper route at the time, so I was like, where can I spend my money, my hard-earned money, and nothing better than cardboard, you know. So that's how I started. I didn't have any grip before that, so I didn't get into it. I didn't have any money. So
Right.
yeah.
Awesome. So at what point did you stick with it like through teenage years, or at what point did you get back into
Man,
it?
I did through teenage years. When I met my wife at 18, it was like I was ashamed of it to break it to her. I threw all my cards in the closet. You know, it was like I had like, you know, that moment where I told her, hey, I gotta, you know, fess up and show you something. And she was like bracing herself for something serious, you know. And she's like, oh, it's baseball cards. Oh, okay, you're a nerd. It's all good. You know, it's cool. Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's yeah. You know, I was like a cool guy, you know, so I didn't want to, you know, like make her think, you know, differently than me of me. But she you know, she loved it. She was like, yeah, this is cool. So she supported it. And
Right.
yeah, I kept going until about 2004. At that time, I was about, my mid 26 years old or so, and I ended up selling my collection.
Okay.
It was a move I regret, but at the time it seemed like the right thing to do.
Sure.
I was like, man, I got a good amount of money here. We were just starting out. We had just bought a house, and the funds looked more appealing than the cardboard at the time.
Right.
So I
Right.
sold everything. Unfortunately, I held on to a few sentimental things, but I got the itch again a few years ago, and she's been very supportive. So
Right.
it's been a fun ride. Yeah.
Right.
So mentally, I've always been there, just not
Sure.
physically. Yeah, with the cards.
So this is a funny comment. There is no shame in baseball cards. I think there is. I bet you there's a lot of people that like even like their partners and wives know about it, and they're still kind of a little ashamed of like like having a collection. But I would venture to guess that there's a humanizing element to it. Like it's another like aspect of your personality
Yeah.
that like just sort of helps kind of flesh you out, and it helps people understand each other a little bit better. Like my partner's not necessarily into baseball cards or collecting, but I think she appreciates
Mhm.
the passion that I have for it, and like it shows like love of history and that sort of thing. And it sort of brings out different parts of your personality. So
Yeah.
with that in mind, Hugo, like I mean, you mentioned the Red Sox. What
Yeah.
what other elements are you kind of drawn to in terms of how you appreciate the game and how you appreciate card collecting?
Well, if you see on my channel and on my Instagram account, I like to be outdoors. So
Yeah.
it started because the weather up northeast was always rough. So we would get rainouts in Little League. So I always hated, like I always wanted to be outdoors. I was always playing. I was on the field all the time. So I kind of brought that into how I like to collect. I like to go out and do photo shoots with my cards, and
Yeah.
same thing with how I make my videos. I like to be outdoors doing something to do with the game, whether it's showing the field or, where a photo of a card was taken, whatever it is, this, I studied it so much, because again, bad weather, you're like locked up in your room a lot. And
Right.
I read every baseball card, every Beckett, you name it. I was reading everything about baseball. I couldn't consume enough baseball. So that's what I like to talk about, just random stuff, stuff that, maybe doesn't get talked about a lot because I find
Right.
it interesting. And I love hearing about all the all-time greats and Hall of Famers. I can't get enough of that either. But I like to shine light on guys that don't get talked about as much. Probably don't get that much shine. So I really got
Right.
a kick out of that. Because it shows the game of baseball and the history of it and how expansive it has been. Like there's so much you can cover. And you can always find your little corner of the hobby or the game that is interesting, to at least some other people, So that's been my aim, really, to do that.
Absolutely. So here's a question already in the chat, and I would encourage anybody else, if you have questions along the way for Hugo, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to keep an eye on it. This is from Wilhelm. Who was your favorite player on that '86 team?
Oh man, the '86. At the time, it was Boggs and Clemens were the big two, but especially Clemens. The Rocket had a huge year in '86.
Yeah.
So it was like when he was on the mound. I mean, it was the city would like stand still and you would watch. You had to
Right.
watch Clemens pitch. So that was the guy, I think. But Boggs, like, it was just I tried to imitate Boggs' batting stance in Little League. It was like
Yeah.
Ricky Henderson from the right hand side, and then Boggs. I tried to bat lefty, and that crotch stance. So those are the top two guys, but Clemens
Right.
for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Here's a flattering comment from Mook. And I agree. Hugo changed the YouTube game. Such a creative, smart, and fun approach to sharing his great knowledge.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks,
one of the
Hugo.
things that's really awesome about your channel is I don't know how you do this, and maybe you don't want to reveal this, Hugo, but like the amount of places that you're able to like physically go to and find a connection to baseball is like kind of mind blowing. Can you talk a little bit about like where you are? Because you're in Florida, right? Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about like Florida and its connection to baseball, and just how like a little bit about your process in terms of finding these places and making your videos?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like you said, being in Florida, with the history of spring training down here, pretty much every ball club's come through at one time or another. So and I'm kind of centrally located. I'm in Lakeland, which is between Tampa and Orlando, so I can access different cities that have a great history, very easily. Like I'm down in St. Pete a lot. That's basically where spring training began in Florida, and it's been there for years and years. I mean, not so much lately, but there's a great history there with the Yankees and the Mets. The Orioles were there for a time, and the Cardinals. So I'm there a lot. Tampa with the Reds and the Yankees. I mean, there's just so much. And here in Lakeland, we have the Tigers, and they're the team who's been here the longest, like tied to a city the longest. They've been here quite a while, since the 20s, I want to say. There's a field here built in 25 that is still around. And I haven't had access, of all things, I haven't had access to that field yet compared to
Right.
others. But like that's where my mind goes. It's like I think of whatever, it could be a card or a player, and I'm like, they have some kind of tie to Florida, one where whether there's a card that was spring training photo that was taken here, and then I'll do a story about that, or something they did at that city, like some kind of like a folk story or something. Like I like to talk about things that you don't hear very often. So there's always something if you dig enough. If you care enough about it, you'll find stuff. So
Right.
try to be like an investigator. That was actually my latest post on Instagram, was about an investigator. So I'm kind of like, I see myself as that a little bit, a baseball card or baseball investigator, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put this up on the screen in case anybody hasn't already checked it out. So this is Hugo's main channel page for his YouTube, which is called Signs of the Pastime. And you're posting fairly regularly, which is, in and of itself admirable, because it's tough.
Stuff.
And can you talk a little bit about, and, I'm not sure, like, it's whatever you're willing to share in terms of like how, like, from start to finish, how often, like how much time does it take you to put a video together, and like how are you shooting it? Are you filming it? Is somebody helping you? Like, are you sort of like filming it in order and then editing it? Like, what's your process?
Yeah, it varies. I haven't been posting as much as I've wanted to. Lately, there's been huge gaps. And that wasn't the goal initially. I was aiming for at least every week. So I've kind of messed up a little bit recently in the last few months. But I do, like my latest one there, where it says I found you. That one I just set up a tripod and recorded myself. My wife was
Yeah.
nearby, who's normally, if someone's going to record me, it's my wife or my son. They enjoy it
Okay,
until
cool.
I have to do like a scene, like something over and over again. I'll do a few takes, and then they kind of like, all right, enough already. Here, use the tripod.
I was gonna say, like, it's probably good to have family there, because they're gonna be honest with you and be like, "That sucks,
Yeah.
Hugo. Like, you got to do it.
Oh, yeah.
You got to do it again."
Yeah, for sure. And it is times, man, I got to do a few takes. Like I'm not really good in front of the camera. I like to actually write more, than speak about it.
Sure.
So, but yeah, that's I got one that I'm working on right now, and I filmed it. Man, it's probably been 2 months since it starts at a farmer's market in St. Pete. And I want to say I filmed that like 2 months ago. I just haven't gotten around to editing it. It's,
Right.
it has to do with Babe Ruth, and, one of these stories that, like, did it happen? Is this true? And so I don't want to do any spoilers, I'd like for you guys to tune in. But
Sure.
it was supposed to be already done, but again, the time, I nitpick a lot. My wife says, she's like, you
Yeah.
spend too much time editing, and well, because I got to get it the way I really like it. I like to, look back at stuff, and be like, oh man, yeah, it was worth the, 15 hours of editing that I did into that video,
Yeah.
paid off, because I had something at the end that I could really enjoy and be proud of, so.
Yeah, totally. You're speaking my language, and I agree. Like, on one hand, it's like frustrating. It's like, really, I'm still working on this video. It's not done yet. But on the other hand, you're right. Like, if I go back and look at stuff, I'm sure you can see in your own work, like, stuff that you're happier with now, perhaps, than say 2 or 3 years ago or whatever. But little by little, you get a little bit better, or you like the direction you're going in or whatever. But like, I do want to look back and be happy with what I did, even if it's like ancient history.
Yeah,
So I totally get that.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so we got a couple more questions coming in here. Some of these are completely ridiculous, but here's this is an actual question, I think. Who was your most hated player after the
Oh
86
my goodness. you know, here's the thing. People probably expected me to say Buckner, but
Sure.
I didn't hate Buckner because to be honest, I didn't understand the gravity of it, like how
Right.
serious was the error.
Right.
I didn't understand baseball that well yet. So, the guys I hated, to be honest, were like Dwight Gooden and, Darryl Strawberry. Those guys, I knew when Strawberry came up, it was like, oh crap, this guy's, he's dangerous. So,
Right.
although I love Strawberry now, and
Right. Right.
especially as a person, he's such a good guy. But back then, as a kid, I was like, oh, this Strawberry guy, I could barely speak English, but I think I could cuss out Darryl Strawberry pretty well. you know?
As a Phillies fan, I grew up absolutely hating Joe Carter for
Oh man,
1993,
yeah,
but now I can like kind of understand why some people like Joe Carter, but I still have this like pain in my
I
stomach.
know, I
Um,
know. Yeah, because he's such a good guy. Once you see how these guys are outside the
right,
game, or even during in the game, you just appreciate who they are. So
right.
yeah, it's hard to
Um,
hate on.
True. Here's a great question from Adam's Card Closet. How or what made you start collecting the Ted Williams set, and how did you start the cut autos?
Oh man, cool, good question. Yeah, yeah, it's weird, So here's the thing: the way I like to collect, being that I guess you could label me as a low budget collector, which is fine. I love it because you find great cards for a couple of bucks that, I get so tickled to have in my collection. So I like, looking for these cards. And now the Ted Williams set, it's um, it just represents baseball so well. It can get any collector into it because it's affordable. It can tell a great story of the history of baseball because it covers the whole history,
Right.
including Negro leagues, including women's baseball. It talks about players that come up through the farm system, and of course some greats, all-time greats, Hall of Famers, and then some guys from the Hall of Very Good. I think there was a really good balance there, and like I said, it's just again Ted Williams. So I'm a Red Sox fan. Ted Williams is my guy, and um, just think about a player from today. Mike Trout, Bryce Harper. One of these superstars. If they
Right.
started a card company, you know, uh, that's what
Yeah.
Ted Williams
Right.
did. Even
Right.
though it might have been his son pushing him to do it, and that's what some people say, but even though it's still something that he backed, I think it's for lovers of baseball and the hobby that they can find some common ground there, and it can bridge that gap between vintage and modern, and all-time greats, people that only like Hall of Famers, and guys who prefer the stars or that are not Hall of Famers. So I think
Right.
it's just the right mix. I think he did a really good job with that. So that's what got me into it. And then it's also great for autographs, especially the 93 set. It's very like it's crisp photos. It's got like an image in the background. It looks very cool. It's kind of a vintage feel to it, even though it's glossy. It reminds me a little bit of like the 54 set where it's got the big face and it's got an action shot.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and then the autographs really pop on it. And once I started picking up a few here and there, I thought, man, there are a lot of autographs available out there for this set because a lot of these guys were still alive when the set dropped in '93, and outside of a few, and that's how I started thinking of cut autos because as I accumulated cards in that set, I said, man, there's really like about 10 to 15 guys who had passed away by then that I could find an index card and create a cut auto from it,
Right.
and that's what started. So really, there's like honestly a couple of guys on that '93 set, like Lou Gehrig. I'll probably never do a car auto of him. I don't know if
Sure.
I'd want to if I had a Lou Gehrig auto, but and like Rogers Hornsby would be a tough one. Pie Trainer is doable. He's in that set. You could find Pie Trainer autographs fairly affordable, but really like three guys that are going to be like just not possible. But the rest, like I have like 90% of that set complete with autographs. So it's been fun. So yeah, long answer there, but that's how I got
No.
into the Ted Williams set.
Yeah. Great. Great question. Yeah. One of my favorite elements that seems to kind of come up occasionally on your YouTube channel is when you focus on the All American Girls Baseball League. And yeah, I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about where that interest came from and a little bit about what you have from that part of
Oh,
the history.
yeah, absolutely. I think for a lot of us, when the movie A League of Their Own dropped in the early 90s, that, I don't know, I never considered, never really thought about women's baseball until that point. And I saw how these ladies, they would sacrifice there too, how they played, they sacrificed their bodies, their time with their families. And, um, I had such an appreciation for that because, again, the game of baseball, it doesn't recognize, gender or race or anything. Anybody can play it, even age, like you see T-ball all the way to, I saw a 96-year-old lady play softball a few months ago down here in Florida at a softball league. And it really, that appreciation for the game and the level of play that these ladies were doing, I just had such admiration for them. And I said, man, it needs to be talked about some more. So
Yeah.
I noticed that there was some guys on YouTube and in the collector space that, collected these cards of these ladies. And I said, I'd like to kind of be one of the ones that carries the torch and continues, their legacy and talking about them from the past. And now that there's, the WPBL, the Women's Professional Baseball League, you see, how well these ladies play, how good this baseball is, So, and there are so many out there that are not even getting, any of the light shining on them, like, I don't know if anyone out there has been watching, it's called the Paul Laney tournament up in Ohio, but there's Amish baseball teams, softball teams with women that are like, these girls look like Charlie Hustle in skirts, man. I'm telling you, like, they're like sliding into home, like head first, and just really smacking the ball. Like, it's really entertaining to watch, and these ladies will never be talked about unless there was social media. And now that we get to see them and how well they play, it's like, man, I really dig it.
Yeah.
I like I said in my last video, I enjoy watching the guys, but I equally enjoy watching the ladies. I really like
Sure.
their love of the game. So that's
Yeah.
what got me into it. Really, that movie. And you asked about cards. I want to show
Sure.
a big pickup. This was something I did a post on Instagram, and I actually my latest video featured this card, and it's Tony Stone. Now, she's one of the ones who played on the Indianapolis Clowns. Sorry for the glare, but I've been looking for this autograph for years. Literally, I didn't know if this card existed with an autograph on it. I had seen her autograph on index cards and on signed baseballs before. But, being that it's part of the Ted Williams set, like I said, he highlighted not only ladies, but the Negro Leagues here. You can see this is the Negro League set. This checked every box you could ever check for me. It had, baseball history, like women's baseball, Negro League baseball, just baseball in general, baseball history in general. Indianapolis Clowns, who are, again, a team now that's playing games, and I just love everything about something like this. And to find it and add it to the collection, like, I just had to get confirmation from my wife, but I couldn't like buy it now fast enough. It was
Right.
like been wanting down for years. So stuff like that, I really dig it. I really do.
Absolutely.
About that.
Going back to what you said towards the beginning, when you said that things like race and gender don't matter, or even age, the first thing I thought was, I've been thinking for a long time that like us like social media folks, YouTubers, we should have a baseball game somehow, some way. I'm a little worried that half of us will end up at the emergency room, but like, I think it would be a lot of fun.
It would be fun.
I mean, I haven't played in a long time, but I miss playing it. I think it would be actually a lot of fun for all of us to field playing sometime.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I agree. I mean, we should try. I don't know. I guess the National would probably be our best bet. Maybe or Strongsville. I wonder if there's a doctor in the community, that would be present. I know there's a couple of pastors that could pray over us, but I know there's a doctor that could tend to us.
Yeah, we need a Moonlight Graham on the field.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That's
Yeah,
right. So
that would be
okay,
fun.
so I want to switch over. So one of the things that prompted me to do this, I'm always happy to have Hugo here, but is especially your Instagram, which for me is just as creative as your YouTube channel, and there's a lot of similarities, but there's some differences. So for anybody that's not on Instagram, I'm going to share the screen here. If you don't have Instagram, you're missing out because Hugo's Instagram is very visually entertaining because, and I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody because most people that are posting photographs of baseball cards, myself included, are pretty much just taking photographs of the baseball cards, and that's cool. Like, that's totally fine. But what I love about what you're doing, Hugo, is that there's some clever associations between not just the card, but like what the background is.
Mhm.
And I'm just gonna pull a couple of these kind of randomly, and
Okay.
as I click on these, if you want to tell a little bit about like the connection, because I'm not going to read all these descriptions that you have here, but yeah, like this one, for example, of Gaylord Perry. Can you talk a little bit about like how this happened?
Yeah, well, Gaylord Perry, again, getting to know the player beyond the diamond. I like his story of his upbringing as a farmer, and then kind of like leaving the farm. Him and his brother Jim, just guys who, again, farmers. I was talking about Amish ladies. These are just tough dudes, who put in the work, and he put in that work and got to the majors, and then afterwards he went back to farming. He became a peanut farmer and
Right.
tobacco. So I'm thinking, man, tobacco and peanuts, what a tie into baseball. And I just thought, man, this is cool. Let me carry this card around. So I carry around a box, of cards that I take with me. I have the box somewhere around here, but I have a box that I take cards with me, and you never know when a photo shoot will break out. Something that will inspire a post. But this is at my in-laws' house. This is my
Okay.
father-in-law's tractor that has just been sitting there for years, and my wife was like, "Hey, we got to go visit my mom today," and I brought my cards along because, again, you never know. And when I got there, I saw the tractor and I thought of Gaylord Perry right away. I was like, "I got the card with me. Let's go ahead and take some shots," and I take about 10 photos or so all around the tractor, and I said, "Well, let me just use this as a background, a little prop there," and then tell a story about Gaylord Perry as a farmer, and how it ties into baseball. So there's always a connection, like that's the beauty of it. I could literally take a picture with anything in the background and find some kind of relevance to that card or that player, So
The hidden gem in this story, Hugo, that like delights me so much because I've been wondering about this the whole time is that the answer is you just have these cards and you're just taking them along with you, right? So it's just like
right.
if you run into an option or an opportunity, like you're set up for it. That's so great.
Yeah, and that sprung up from, all right. So again, I was so focused on YouTube, and I had started an Instagram account around the time I started my YouTube, and I didn't know what to post on Instagram. To be honest, I
Right.
was like, I thought about how could I get people to view the my posts, and I was
Yeah.
worried so much about, again, the, not the consumer, but the audience, that
Sure.
I failed to do what I love to do, and that is take my cards out in the wild, like I don't like my cards sitting in boxes for too long. I like to take them out and enjoy them, be a kid again. That's kind of like how my philosophy on life is, really, just approach things with like a childlike spirit, and so I said, let me bring my cards with me, and if they get damaged, it's all right, it's not the end of the world. I don't mind a little bit dinged up cards. It shows that they've been well loved and appreciated. And that's kind of like, what sprung it up. I said, I'm not doing videos all the time, but I can make a post on Instagram every day. And that's been the goal, daily posts since April. I started end of April. And I've pretty much, outside of a couple of days, like I went down to the Dominican Republic a couple of weeks ago, and it was tough to post there every day. I had
Sure.
photo shoots that I had done, prepping ahead of time, but we didn't have Wi-Fi every day there, so I couldn't, post those days. But pretty much every day, I've had a post because this is something I can commit to. Unlike YouTube, I can't commit to putting videos out, on a regular
Sure.
basis. But on a post, absolutely every day like this, you'll see me on Instagram every day. So, and I write quite a bit, as you can see. I
Yeah.
get long-winded. I like I said, I like to write, better and than speak. And um, and I know AI is all the craze right now. And I try, like, there are times I do ask AI for help on like finding out something about a player, but most of this is just really top of the dome, my words. This is how I feel about it. But there is some stuff on there that I have copy and pasted a fun fact, but
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. So
That's great. And
yeah,
like it's kind of I would imagine it because this is how it feels to me. I don't know how it is to you. It's like it's also just like mentally therapeutic to like be
mhm,
creative and get some thoughts out and just
yeah,
practice kind of
yeah,
how you want to word something or how you want to make something engaging.
yeah.
Um, can you talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah. All right. So Steve Balboni, again, another player that he was so cool as a kid. Like, didn't look like a ball player, and I just thought this guy was just a massive beast, hitting dingers all the time. And I mentioned that in the post, but again, I had my box of cards with me, and I'm out grocery shopping with my wife at Publix, which is a big supermarket down in these parts. And in Publix, these older ones, they have these scales out by the exit. So when you're on the way out, that's just tradition. You go and, yeah, bye bye Balboni. So it's I had the bye bye Balboni, and I thought, I always thought this guy was like this massive, beast of a man. And uh, I found out that he was 225. That was his playing weight, and I'm at 205. And I don't feel like a big guy, that's only 20 pounds off. So I asked my wife, let me hold on to some groceries and take a picture when it reached 225, on the scale. So that's what you see there in the background, the scale tipping at 225. That was his playing weight. And then I just, yeah, talked a little bit about him. I could have kept going on and on about Bye Bye Balboni. He's just like a cult like figure now. And again, a guy that will never sniff the Hall of Fame, but hey, it's all good. Like, this guy had his moments, and he's still pretty relevant. I hear his name come up every now and then. I thought, yeah, let me talk about a different aspect of Bye Bye Balboni somebody hasn't talked about yet. So
Right.
that's what I did right there.
Yeah. I really like this one. I just think
Mhm.
like there's something really pleasing about this one. Everybody in the hobby community, of course, knows about Bobby Shantz.
Yeah.
Yeah. What can you say about this one?
Yeah, my wife has these elephants around the house, and I thought, man, what a cool prop to hold up Bobby Chance, who played for the Philadelphia Athletics. I mean, this is before KC. Like, I think of the KC Athletics as such a old school team, but I mean, he was playing when they were in Philly.
Right.
So and of course their mascot is the elephant there. So I said, oh, this fits, and then, like, with the plant in the background. Again, this is all my wife's stuff. She grows plants in the house, and it's just this plant here. It's just always. I mean, you could cut it; it's going to continue to grow. It's like always
Sure.
bearing, these beautiful leaves, and it's kind of like representative of Bobby Chance. This guy might be over 100 years old, but this guy has this life in him. He's still doing shows and TTM. What a like an example of a life well lived, and just, again, he's got that life still going, still giving, just like this plant.
Right.
And what again, a tie from old school baseball to today. So Bobby Chance is just another player who's not a Hall of Famer, but man, uh, I just I get a kick out of his whole career and what he's done after his career. A short guy, but he kicked butt, man. He was a tough little guy, and he's still kicking butt. So that's it's a good guy to highlight and post about, I think.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see. Are there any in here that you would particularly want to highlight?
Oh man. It's funny. Like, recently I did one on Carlton Fisk. Right, it was right there on the fourth one, right after
Oh,
Bye Bye
this one.
Balboni. It's just one that popped into my mind right away. Um, I just know these like random stories that you just don't really hear much about. But there was a fire delay at Comiskey Park back in '74. And again, as a Red Sox fan, you hear these random stories, that other fan bases might not hear about. But the Red Sox were playing the White Sox a few days ago, and I thought, man, what a cool, way to connect what's going on right now currently to something in the past and bring cardboard into it through a Carlton Fisk rookie card. And I saw a fire truck, and I said, well, I got the card with me, always prepared, like a weird guy, as if we couldn't get any weirder, like I'm carrying my cardboard
Yeah,
in a cardboard box.
you found new levels of weirdness, Hugo.
Yeah, for
Congratulations.
sure. And people, what's cool is this hobby gives you tough skin. Not only do you have to tell people that you collect cardboard, right, of guys, baseball cards, but now I'm out in public while people are walking by me and I'm holding on, holding cards, and they're looking at me like, what is this guy doing? And funny story, real quick. There's one that I actually met the owner of my favorite coffee shop through doing a post. He saw me through his office window. I was holding up, man, I can't remember who it was at the moment. I want to say Cal Ripken. Might have been a Cal Ripken rookie card. And he saw it from a distance and he came out and he's just like, dude, are you into baseball cards? And we just hit it off. And now we're like good buds. We talk baseball all the time. And I've been going to that coffee shop for 10 years. I never talked to him,
Wow.
And now because of this, and he's seeing me out in public doing a photo shoot, now we're able to connect. And he's a huge baseball fan. And, I'll be able to, I took a picture with him. I'm going to feature him in an upcoming video. So it's so cool, like, again, you put yourself out there, you never know what's going to happen, and that's the beauty of it. But again, there was a point in my life I would have been probably too ashamed or like, like, oh, I don't want to do this in public. But now I've gotten enough looks and, people coming up to me with like curious that I don't even think about it, to be honest. I just do and go for it, so
Right.
That's the beauty of it. So that's what's been fun. So that gave me a chance to talk about the fire delay. And if you want to read about it, if anyone's there on Instagram, you can read about the fire delay instead of a rain delay, which I hated so much as a kid. Now, fire delay. Who would have thought? And you can hear about the popcorn fire at Comiskey Park. And Carlton Fisk had been ejected from that game. So he's sitting in the clubhouse with Bill Lee, another guy who got ejected, and the manager, Darryl Johnson, there, and they're smelling smoke. And they're like, what's going on? So they ran out in the field with all the rest of the fans, those smoke filling Comiskey Park. And now they're out in the field with the fans and people mingling with the players. And Fisk is sitting there hanging out with his brother who was visiting him. So it's just a cool story that you probably haven't heard of. But again, cardboard with the interesting background. Like, why would there be a fire truck? It gives me an opportunity to tell this story, So,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's the only image of this card with the fire truck on Instagram. So
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing. Every single photo is of me out in the wild. Like, it's not a backdrop of like, I'm not going to use maybe a computer or anything. It's always, in person. And then, as you go down, like, that was a good one there.
Yeah. I'm very fond of this one.
Yeah. With Ray Noble, like, I had this old, in my backyard, I have baseball equipment that has, again, that's a catcher's mask that, has seen better days, of course, and it's gotten all rusted up from me leaving out in the rain. So I was like, you know what, let's talk about a catcher, let's talk about Ray Noble and Burke Ross and his card. And, again, a little background on that image. It's funny because my mom, of all people, she's like, hey, I'd like to learn about these players. You're talking to an audience that probably already knows, but I want to know about these guys, like, could you talk a little more about them? Or, why is this interesting to you? And it's like, well, the little history of Burke Ross and, how he was a photographer for Bowman. And, there was a Bowman image that was used. The same image here was used for his 51 Bowman card. And, and then how he was sued, because these images were being used without the player's consent. And I mentioned it there at the end that, all the players that sued ended up getting $20, from that lawsuit. Right. And you can pretty much buy a Ray Noble card for like $20 now, so, just like, again, a different spin on things. And I just thought, well, instead of letting this mask go to waste, let's do a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And this happened right in my yard, So I didn't have to go far for this one, but there are some that I do have to go pretty far. Yeah. Let's see. Some get more love than others, but like that.
Tell me when to stop. Yeah, which one?
Oh no, like the Concepcion right there. Like, I just thought. It's up one more right there, Concepcion rookie.
Oh yeah.
Again, this was just a prop. something I have at home, just to make it interesting. Uh, Rawlings a glove. I'm sorry, and I thought, well, this guy was known for his glove, and right there it says the finest in the field, and Concepcion, and that the big red machine was the finest in the field. Like that guy was a key part of that team. And again, another one that gets kind of ignored a little bit, neglected, in the hobby because of big guys like Bench and Morgan, and Rose and Foster, and even Griffey, So then it's like, hey, let's talk about Concepcion and how important he was, and how awesome he was on the field. What an important part of that team he was. And I just thought it was cool that says the finest in the field. And I thought, here it is. Here's a prop right in my house, and just do a cool post about it. And again, it's a buyback, which I love. I've gotten into buybacks thanks to Shane Shoebox Legends. He's really put me onto that, and I've been picking them up, as often as possible. So more to come on buybacks. I just think they're really cool, way to collect. So let's see a cool image here. Like that one right there with the three guys, the three Dominican players. I just thought this was cool. This is again, going out and about in my town, there's a Studebaker building, and right there it says you can see it there. They still have I just thought it was cool. I love these old signs, and it's like, well, how could I tie it into the cards I had at the moment, and I had this batting leaders card, and all these guys are Dominican. So it was a good opportunity to shine a light on these three guys who, now there are so many Dominican players. These guys kind of got it started, showing what Dominicans, what they're capable of. And I'm wearing my Dominican Republic hat that I just picked up down there. And, again, appreciation for the history there. And these guys kind of got it started, the Lou brothers and Rico Cardi. And the card is 66, when these guys finished 1, 2, and 3 in the batting race. And that's when that Studebaker building, Studebaker stopped being made, in 66. So I was like, well, let's take a photo shoot in front of this building and find a connection, and
Right.
that was the connection. The year that one ended and one was kind of getting started, so yeah.
Absolutely. Very cool.
hmm
Um,
Let's see here. And then, like that radio there with the Ted
yeah.
Williams. This was early
Right.
on when I kind of started posting, every day, and I was like, oh, this is fun, man. I could find anything that's cool. Now this, that radio there, the model is 546T, right? T as in Teddy,
Yes.
and in that year, that model was made, and I connected it to Ted, there. I'm not remembering very well, but I want to say it was in the 46 World Series, because that's when that radio was out, and that's the year the Red Sox should have won it, and they were stacked. They had such great players. So I just made a connection. I thought, hey, that radio and the Sox have a connection in that year. They were both great. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I thought that was pretty fun. And again, I got that one. I don't have that radio. I wish I did. That's actually at a bakery that I go to a couple of times a week and pick up some treats that I shouldn't be eating. But she has really cool decorations at the bakery, and this is actually sitting right there. So this is in a dining room, surrounded by a bunch of people just chowing down on baked goods, and there I am taking photos amongst croissants and whatnot, taking pictures of baseball cards in front of her radio that probably doesn't work, but I just thought it was a cool prop.
Right. And just for a split second, like you get something and it's
Yeah,
a nice little piece on your channel, on your
yeah,
account.
oh
It's
yeah,
great.
absolutely. Yeah, and let's see here. I started pretty early on. What's a cool one? That George Brett rookie. That's actually at the same bakery. You can kind of see in the background. She has a lot of like American flags and all
Sure.
these lights. It just felt like kind of like a '70s vibe a little bit. Just the throwback. And I got to talk a little bit about Brett and how times are changing in American culture. Like we're just coming out of, you know, uh, Vietnam War, and then guys didn't have the crew cuts anymore. Now they were looking like George Brett, and these dudes played hard, man. They were just like, there was like this newfound appreciation for the game. I think like the country was not in war anymore. It was like I don't know. Times were different, and you could see that in the cardboard. You see the designs in cardboard back then and how different they
Right.
were. Tops did a good job, showing what the culture was like. And I think this card just represents that. Like George Brett looks a little rebellious, but like all American boy and ready to grind it out and just fight for that position on the team. And I just thought the background did it justice, and the lighting. It was just really cool. So this was really when I was trying to get my creative juices flowing, like
Awesome.
let's find some cool backgrounds. Because when I started out back in April, it wasn't, like the backgrounds were kind of like, oh, all right. There wasn't anything exciting, but this was when I started hitting my stride, at least personally, what I like to do, So
Sure.
yeah.
Um, so anybody that's not on Instagram, make sure you're looking this up. We got a little bit of time, Hugo. So with the little bit of time we have left, if you have any cards
Yeah.
handy that we could actually see in person, it'd be great.
All right. Well, these are cards that are coming up that I will feature.
Okay,
on,
cool. And
coming up on Instagram. This is on deck. These are in my box. These are going to be in the box. Like
Nice.
I know
nice.
Mr. Wilhelm's in the chat, so I will have. I love this Hoyt Wilhelm. This picture was taken down in Vero Beach, so I could either do a post from Vero Beach, which I go down to every now and then, or I know where he's buried down in Sarasota, so I might just do one where he's buried. I don't know. Another guy, Brooks Lawrence. These are guys that don't get talked about so much. Brooks Lawrence. I got this autographed card of his, and he was almost one of the Black Aces. He won 19 games in the season. I think it was this year here. Yeah, 1956. So this 57 Topps card shows his stats in the back. There's going to be an interesting story and video about guys like, Brooks Lawrence. They would stay at this place called the Felder House. The Felder family would host Black players that couldn't stay at local hotels. So Brooks Lawrence was one of these guys. And, there's a story about him playing with a chip on his shoulder to just prove himself. And he almost won 20 games that season. So I just think it's going to be really cool to go to the Felder House in Tampa and talk about the history there of guys down in Florida not having a place to stay because of the color of their skin,
Right.
So, and then we go from a player like that to Max Patkin, which, the crown prince of baseball, interesting figure in baseball. I like to cover all different parts of the game. And I think Matt talk about, and so hopefully that'll be done soon. These guys here, we got Harvey Keenan and Al Kaline, and this photo is taken here in Lakeland, where I live, at the ballpark that still exists. And my goal is to end up right there at this spot to do a video and a post on Instagram, just to show where they stand. Because I've watched many games from like right there in the stands, like it's owned now by one of the college teams here locally. So the vibes are so cool, man. It's such a cool place to watch a game, such a throwback. So I'd love to highlight that someday. I'd like to highlight figures like Don Zimmer. Again, just a really cool man of baseball, just a very interesting life. And so he has a tie to Red Sox, and I can talk a lot about Don Zimmer or guys like this, Ron Teasley, who I just picked this up. Allen and Ginter, Negro League's autograph. I have a couple of these, and I'd love to collect the set, but it's so hard to come by, and they're getting to be really pricey these days. So I'm fortunate to have a couple of them in my collection. But I just picked this one up, so I'm really happy with it. And I can talk about Ron Teasley, another guy who passed away recently, but lived a long time, and just a Negro Leaguer who had a pretty great career, and I can tell his story. And I could tell, personal stories. Now, these guys, these are coming up soon. They're a couple of Cubbies, but they have a tie to my childhood. I grew up near Pawtucket, and I would watch the Pawtucket Red Sox. And these guys, Mike Brumley played for the Paw Sox, and I got this autograph. He was sitting in his car, and he was like, there was all kinds of stuff sitting in his car. Like, it looked like he lived in his car, to be honest, But he made it back to the big leagues as a coach, and unfortunately he passed away last year. But just great memories with Mike Brumley. And then Jay Baller, who has such a cool card there in 88 Topps. You can see the chains, and the the chest hair popping out through. And this guy, I went to a game with my little sister, and he did his warm up in the bullpen. And after he was done warming up, he handed the ball to my little sister, and we went home and watched the replay on Nesson, which shows the Red Sox games, the Pawtucket Red Sox games at the time. And you can see us in the background her getting the ball from Jay Baller, and then I got this autograph from him after the game. So cool card, but just a cool memory for me. So these are things that I like to talk about coming up on Instagram, and hopefully I'll make a video out of it as well. So that would be a bonus these days if I can make a video too, because Instagram's a given, man. Lord willing, I'll be able to post every day on Instagram, and get my thoughts down on, get to talk about it. And I got a warning also for anyone. If you go on Instagram, I like to put music to every post as well. And that was from when I was a kid. Again, being inside a house, looking at cards, I would have headphones all the time. And I grew up on hip hop, so there's a lot of hip hop beats and stuff. So it's almost like, bringing it all back to how I fell in love with the hobby, fell in love with baseball. There was a lot of music, cards, and it was just, or I was listening to the Red Sox on the radio. But there's always sound tied to everything, and I'm trying to keep that going with Instagram. So you might not like the music, but it's meaningful to me, and I hope you do. I hope you enjoy, and that it goes well with the image that I'm posting. So
right. Well, I mean, it's amazing that you have found a way to tap into that time period in your life, and that to me is what makes it exciting, because that's what makes it authentic, and I think that's what makes it something that people look forward to. So just a reminder for everybody, if you're on Instagram, it's Signs of the Pastime, and of course there's also the YouTube channel as well, so make sure you subscribe. Hugo, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for what you do, because whether it's like intentional or not, sharing your enthusiasm for the cards and the stories is infectious, and I think that's why we all do what we do. But it's nice to, I don't know, it's nice to have a creative outlet that also has an impact on people, and I think your posts make me smile, so I'm sure others are enjoying it as well. So appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, appreciate that, Alex. Thank you, and thank you for having me on and allowing me to talk about it. As you can see, like I say, I like to write more, but you get me talking about it, and now it's like, oh man, I actually do like talking about it. So, yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, if you enjoyed this live stream, give it a thumbs up. It does matter. Head over to 4 Collectors at 9 o'clock. And until next Sunday, the bar is closed. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a great week.
Take care.